This is Fintan Dunn for Irish First Mothers, and you're very welcome to our fourth session. With me is Cathy McMahon, the founder of Irish First Mothers. Cathy, what's the schedule for today?
We have Joan. Joan had her first baby when she was in her early 20s. She's now in her mid-70s, and she spent a short period of time in St. Patrick's on the Navan Road. But most of the coercion that Joan experienced went on actually in Irish hospitals.
Okay.
You're very welcome, Joan, and perhaps you'd like to start by telling us a bit about your family background.
Well, to start with, I was born as a twin, and my twin sister died, and I was very, very small. And my mother didn't want a girl; she wanted boys. So she didn't really want. I was only £1.50 born, so she wouldn't have handled me at all. So my father took over the care of me from that time, and then when 3 years later she had her son, so she was happy, and two more sons. So I was in the care of my father, which I thought was nice, but become very fond of him. Practically stuck with him every step of the way. And then she died when I was 15, 16, and he thought, she had asked him would he explain the fact of life to me during my early years, and he demonstrated. So that was a little bit off-putting, but however, I got by that. Then she died, and he thought I should automatically share his bed, which I didn't want to do, and I got a hiding for that because I was bullied into it. Control freak, wouldn't let me outside the door unless I was going to do some messages for him. But I worked my way around it and escaped and had boyfriends and so on without him knowing, and that's how I ended up pregnant. And when I told him, I was half killed, and I was told I couldn't possibly keep the baby. It would embarrass him because he was a businessman, and I was making a holy show of the family and so on.
Yeah.
So I was kept in, and I was made wear 2 bras, one to stuff to make it look as if I was putting on weight in my chest, and wrapped in cardboard with belts on it to keep my stomach from being visible. And I was sent into St. Patrick's the end of the middle of September, and I was there. Didn't have much dealings with them in St. Patrick's. Promptly was put into my sister Agnes. I was told I was to shut up and stop crying. I should have been crying a few months ago, and so on. I was put into the sewing room because I could use a machine, and I made uniforms. I also washed stairs, washed them down, and I had to wash them back up again because they weren't clean enough. So starting at the top and going back down again, I had to wash upwards. However,
this was in St. Pat's, was it?
Yes.
What age were you at that time?
23.
Right.
A very naive 23, very immature.
And, your father had really had an incredible control over your life then. In terms of also holding you back, of understanding life properly. And was it him who was organising this? And, you say you saw the doctor and all that. He was on the job.
Oh, I saw the doctor myself because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I hadn't a clue. And she told me I was pregnant, and I wrote a letter to my father, waited until it arrived in the post, and went out and let him read it. And when I come back, I got battered. So that was my way of telling him. However, he contacted the local priest where we lived, and he come around and told me how bad I was and all the rest of it. And then arranged for me to keep out of sight until they could get me into St. Patrick's. And there was some woman came, I don't know who she was, some woman came along and also gave out to a big stout woman with a kind of a flower pot hat on her head. She was a horrible looking person. I'd say she was a social worker of some sort, I don't know.
Yeah.
Eventually I was smuggled out late in the evening on a Sunday evening and brought to St. Patrick's, and I was led down the steps and into Sister Agnes, who gave out hell to me. Can I mention then that I made friends with somebody there?
Of course you can, indeed. I'm glad to hear it.
I made a friend, as I said, and the only time we could talk was in the kitchen at night when everybody else was in bed, so we had great fun. And then I had a few x-rays to go to in St. Kevin's, and they admitted me to St. Kevin's because I had a contracted pelvis.
Right.
And there was complications. While I was there in St. Kevin's, my father continued to visit my friend, so-called, and eventually I was in St. Kevin's from what was it? The beginning of October until December when I had the baby. I went into labour on the 4th of December. Waters broke at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the nurses told me to keep moving, make the beds, help the serve tea and so on. And by that evening I was still on my feet and in pain. I was put into a side ward in beside the labour ward, door open. I could hear everybody screaming and having their going through labour and all the rest. I got absolutely no painkiller whatsoever, and I didn't have anybody with me. I was just in that ward on my own.
Can I just...
Yes?
St. Kevin's is now St. James's.
Yes.
And did
Hospital 5
in St. Kevin's. And
yeah.
Did your dad visit you in St. Kevin's?
No, he didn't. He sent my brother, my younger brother, to visit me. And while he continued visiting St. Patrick's.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So he had made friends with the nun in St. Patrick's, and he was bringing her a box of chocolates and LPs and everything else because she fancied some singer, and he was licking up to her like this. So, however, I had the baby on the 8th of December, and I was put into isolation because I developed a stomach upset, and I'd been sectioned, and I wasn't allowed normal food. But they brought the baby into the end of the bed and changed and fed him, and I never held him. A week later, he was gone, and I was in isolation for 21 days, and I was sent home.
Right. And who took your baby?
The nurse said he was gone back to St. Patrick's. I have no idea how he got there, but obviously the nurse brought him back.
So that was a baby boy you had?
A little boy, yes. He was 8 pounds 12 ounces.
He was a big baby.
Quite a big baby for
Yeah.
He was a big baby, and that's what I worry about. And the master of the hospital had decided at the last minute, according to my notes that I got on the Freedom of Information thing and all that, that it was a split-second decision whether I'd have a section or the other thing, the damage in the pelvis. I can't think of the name.
Episiotomy.
Yeah, that. It was. But if I presented again, I'd probably have that.
Right.
It wasn't as if, it was when I presented again, I would have that.
You mean when you had another pregnancy?
Yes, he foresaw that, he foretold that.
Right.
And ended his letter by wishing the doctor in St. Patrick's a very happy Christmas. That was the end of the note. However, it wasn't a horrible place. I didn't find it bad, St. Patrick's. I found it was just a roof over my head. It was better than where I'd been living with my father, and there wasn't constant rows at one part. The crying at night was one thing I couldn't stand. People crying and crying.
Yeah, the other girls
crying.
Yeah.
Sorry?
The other girls crying.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't funny because it hadn't registered at that stage what way I was going. I hadn't clue what I was doing. I was more childish than anything else.
Yeah.
But when I was charged home after the 21 days, I found my friends in my house with her baby.
The girl that you'd met in Pat?
My father. Yes.
Right.
And she'd clung on to my father as an excuse to get her out of the place, and he thought she fancied him and so on. I was left to mind the baby while they went out, and he expected me and told me I should feed the baby since I got plenty of milk.
Wow.
I didn't. I couldn't.
Yeah. I find it amazing that you're saying your friend from St. Pat's was back at home. How had they let her out into his custody care?
I have no idea. No idea whatsoever, Fintan. I really do not know. Because if he couldn't have me and my child home, how could he put me in and took somebody else out? Where was? Unless, as I've been thinking over the years, he fancied her. She thought she fancied him. She happened to be a prostitute, which I didn't know. I found out later.
So just to recap on things, your father had you placed in St. Patrick's. You were in St. Patrick's for a short period of time, and you were moved to St. Kevin's, which is now St. James's, because you had complications. And
Yes.
in St. Kevin's, you helped the nurses make beds and so on?
When my waters broke, yes.
Right.
Only then, I was just as an ordinary patient. I was one of the brats, the Pat's brats is what they referred to as.
Right. And so you were on like bed rest?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but when the waters broke, I had to get up and move and keep going, and I was kept on my feet all day, and then put into the side ward and left there with no painkiller whatsoever.
Right.
And then I was told, wasn't told I was being sectioned. The bed was just moved out and into the labour ward.
And where did the other girl...
Going.
Sorry. Where did the other girl have her baby, and when was her baby born?
While I was in St. Patrick's, in St. Kevin's, she was still in St. Patrick's. She had her baby before me.
Right, in St. Patrick's.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then that explains how she was able to... She was back home before you.
Yes, he took her out then. But we were living in a hovel at the time, and how they could allow her to live. My father liked the idea of working and living in his workshop.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't have a proper, what you would call a home. It was a hovel. It was horrible. There was an outside toilet and everything. It just wasn't a suitable home. But it was, I don't know how the priest that arranged me to go in could stand there and allow the reverse situation to happen. I just cannot get it. I can't take it in at all.
Yeah, that's totally mind-boggling.
So how long were you there at home and with this other friend of yours there?
About 6 weeks. She vanished. And I got blamed on it, not making her feel welcome, not looking after her baby and so on.
Yeah.
And a few belts in here and there. My two brothers over the years left home because of his, and my younger brother stayed because he was too young to go. But
and was she holding on to her baby?
Yes, she was.
That's a good one.
She had a, but her family wouldn't allow her. Her family was in show business, and they wouldn't have anything to do with her. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, at least in her case, she had resisted the pressure. And
she was younger than me. She was 19.
Yes.
She was worldly, if you know what I mean by that. She'd been out in the real world. I wasn't.
Yeah, she probably felt that she could earn herself a living if it came right down to it. Yeah. She
went back to the father of the child, who was married, but he supported her anyway, apparently.
Yeah.
At least so I heard.
Okay.
He said she was depressed.
So,
sorry?
How did you feel at that stage then? Were you starting to really, was it hitting you at all? Once the sort of all the frenetic stuff had died down, now you're back at home, she's gone. Where are you now?
Yeah, pretty well devastated. I hadn't a clue what was happening to me. I had a child, I hadn't got a child. I had somebody else's child in mind, and then I hadn't. It was a double departure, if you like, and it got lost. So it was just mind-boggling, as you said.
Yeah.
And I was looking for somebody that wanted me for me, not a case of going out being crazy looking for fellas. I didn't mean it. I don't mean to do that. But when my father sent me out to deliver his work to me, I'd pretend I didn't get paid for the stuff and go off out and meet somebody and chat with people I knew, and then ended up pregnant again.
Right.
Not for the same fella, different fella. But when my father found that out, I was locked up again. I wasn't allowed outside the door. He delivered me to St. Kevin's back at 7 o'clock in the morning when I went into labour again, and didn't come back to see me while I was there until I was being discharged. And he came and collected me, brought me out to Clontarf. I had a normal birth at that stage, and that was all. He brought me to Clontarf to a nurse in a nursing home, and she took the baby. Bye-bye, and I didn't see her again.
So you, on your second pregnancy, you were kept at home?
Yes, the whole time I wasn't allowed outside. I didn't even see a doctor.
Wow.
I just knew I was pregnant, and that was it. I never attended any antenatal class or anything, clinics or anything else. I just went into the hospital. I said I was in England, and I was just home, and I was I got into labour. That was my story, and I stuck to it.
Yeah.
They didn't treat me any different. I said, "Oh, John, it's you again." That was I got from the master seeing me.
So you had your second baby in St. Kevin's again as well.
Yes.
And were you the eldest among your siblings?
Yes, I was the eldest and only girl.
Right. And what age was the youngest? The reason why I'm asking is that your father was basically raising you on his own. Was there any social services involved? Keeping an eye? No.
No.
So what year was your second baby born?
68.
68. That was
May 68, yeah.
4 years later. So you were 27 at that stage. Yeah.
I'm still very much under his thumb.
Yeah.
And I didn't see my child again. I never saw. That was a girl.
Yeah.
And she was 7 or 8 pounds. I can't remember. I lost. My mind's going a bit on that.
Yeah.
Same thing happened again. I was working away for him like he did had his own business, and I was delivering his products and collecting payment for them, and the same thing happened again. I felt the same fella was the father. My second child was the third child's. You know what I mean? My second child's father and my third child's father were the same person.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this time I went to Holles St.
And how long after your second pregnancy did you become pregnant again?
3 years.
3 years. And so this time you're saying, were you kept at home again?
Yes. Kept out of sight.
And did you see a doctor?
No. Same again. I went into the hospital and told them I was home from England, and I was getting out. They gave out to me for nothing because I was very, very anemic and very low in iron.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And all that. So.
And was your baby okay?
No, I was, first of all, when I had the baby, the nurse had done the stitching up process, and this doctor came while I was in Holles St, and my legs were up in stirrups, and this doctor went, "Who told you to stitch this woman up? She shouldn't be stitched," and got the stitches opened, and he said that the afterbirth hadn't been delivered, and he manually delivered the afterbirth.
Right.
And then got stitched up again. In pure agony, I was sent back to the ward. It was just horrendous, that one was.
So, on your third baby, was it a boy or a girl?
It was a boy.
Right. And that was...
I was allowed to bring him home. I was allowed to bring him home to another hovel where we'd moved to. Mm-hmm. And then 3 days later, a nun arrived at the door and said she had a home for my baby.
Right.
That there was coming new, and I was to bring the baby late at night so nobody would see me. And I went with my younger brother, and we walked up, which is about 20 minutes, half an hour's walk away from where we lived, deliver the baby. Actually, it was the night an internment was announced on the television.
Mm-hmm.
So that was in the 70s?
Sorry?
That was in the early 70s?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was told I could visit every week, but after 3 weeks I was asked would I not visit. I was upset with the new parents, who were as old as my father, by the way.
Right.
And they already had a son they adopted.
Right.
And I had to give up going to see him. I knew where he lived. I could see. I could have gone there, but I didn't. Going back to my first child, I was told to sign in the Peace Commissioner's office down on the Quays. I was forced. My father brought me there and made me sign the form in front of Peace Commissioners. I remember that. The other two, I did not sign any forms, but having got the paperwork, my signature is on it. Now, my father and I wrote very alike, so he obviously forged my signature, because I certainly was never in either of the offices they mentioned.
Right.
In Westmoreland Street.
And
that's not really appropriate, because a document of that importance, you're supposed to be present and sign it in front of somebody.
I know, that's what I was looking at. That is I am hereby, this person is known to me. I have never been in those offices. I remember the first one. I remember the man standing over me. But the other two, I know my memory's gone, but I do not remember. I've never been in a place that these things were signed.
Do you mind me asking you what age you are now?
76 last week.
Oh, 76 last week. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Well, can we pause for just a second there? Because you're some handy production line there for them all. I mean, the ones who are taking the babies off you. I can't believe it. Could you?
No. It was just horrendous, and I was a slaughter according to my father. That's all I was. And he didn't want to know. And my brothers ran away, and they didn't want to know. They knew about it, but they ran away because he was hitting them and everything. So that was just life. Was horrible.
Yeah.
Well, you're a victim of him, but did nobody sympathetic, so to speak, with a bit of cop on, offer you some kind of intervention or help?
No.
Who knew?
No. Nobody knew. I was kept out of the way. We didn't have friends because nobody liked my father as the years went on, because he was too controlling. He wouldn't let my brothers out to play, for example, when they were younger. It was 3 years in between my three brothers, and each of us was 3 years in between us. They went away to England, and one of them got married, and the other one he got married, and my middle brother died of epilepsy, apparently, but it wasn't. It was an abscess in the brain, and he'd had what was being treated like for epilepsy, but my father said he was putting it on, and he half killed him to beat it out of him. He died after having 23 fits one night, and they found in the post-mortem that he'd had an abscess in his brain and an abscess on his chest. And
what age was he at that stage?
Jesus, he was 19.
19, gotcha.
Yeah.
So none of the doctors or none of the nurses in St. Kevin's or Holles Street known, obviously, that you hadn't had medical attention through your last two pregnancies that we're talking about. None of them took you aside and asked you,
no,
or advised you, or offered you support.
No. When I went into Holles Street, a nurse came in to me and said, "You have to wear a ring. We don't allow single women into this ward. You'll have to wear a wedding ring." And she gave me an imitation ring to wear while I was in the hospital. Took it back off me when I was leaving.
Yeah. We've heard from your fourth living witness, and thanks for that, Joan. But, we've just heard too many stories about Holles Street now for us to not remark on the treatment in Holles Street. Seems to be particularly appalling.
Oh, it was chronic. It was chronic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go back there for anything.
Yeah. So, did you, you went on then and you had more children. You got married.
I got married and found out it was a bogus marriage. I married the father of my two children, and I found out he was supposed to have been killed in a car crash, but he wasn't. There was only a set-up to tell me that I was widowed, and I couldn't claim a widow's pension because I had no marriage certificate. I'd gone to Liverpool to a registry office and got married, which I should have known better. I ran away from home, and it wasn't a registry office at all. He was already married. He had several children of his own. And when I contacted him, I found out where he lived. I contacted him years later when my family were growing up, and I rang him. My eldest daughter was with me, and I rang. "I don't know who you are. I never heard of you before." And hung up the phone. That was it. So my life was in tatters, totally in tatters.
And
my second daughter from my marriage doesn't talk to me. She considers I did all this, believes what my father said, but he interfered with my children, and I didn't know that.
Right.
I blocked out his antics with me, his carrying on with me, and I had to go and work, and I left him to mind them, and she they maintained that he interfered, and I knew about it, and I was letting it go, and I wasn't. I would not have done that if I'd realised it wouldn't. I blocked it out, Kathy. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't think. I had to make a living somewhere.
Yeah,
and the only thing I did knew what I was doing was I knew how to make money was go and write these songwriting things and go and sell them.
Yeah.
Bring money in.
So basically what we're talking about here is that your father, after your mother died, and possibly beforehand, was sexually abusing you.
Yes.
Yeah. And nobody...
He wasn't affected by the children. Well, that part I'm positive of. He didn't get that far. He just... digital penetration, is that what you call it?
Yeah. So, have you reconnected with the children?
When that information came out, it was about 12 years ago, I applied for contact with them, and I met my daughter, my second child, who only lived around the corner from me.
Oh.
She went to school with the children, my parents from my marriage. They were in primary and she was in secondary, but I never recognised her. Her grandfather abused her as well. She was handed into a family that the grandfather abused her.
So the adoptive family is what you're saying, is that the grandfather in the for the want of a word, adoptive family abused her.
Yes. And by the way, the social worker, when she was telling me about my daughter, asked me afterwards, did she tell you about her grandfather? And I said no, and she started to tell me, fill me in all the details. And she'd also had told me that I would meet my eldest son. There was a mix-up. I had called my son James, and he'd been renamed Patrick. And my daughter I'd called Patricia, which her mother had kept her adopted mother had kept the name, because if I'd wanted her to be called Patricia, that's what she used to be called. So she was called Patricia. And the social workers had got mixed up between Patrick and Patricia, and they didn't know there was a delay in the connection. But having met my daughter first, then I was to meet my son 2 or 3 days later, and I went up. She took a photograph of me and then told me that he didn't want to speak to me, that he had changed his mind, hadn't heard my story. She had told him. Social worker had told him my story. And he declined. He gave me left a letter for me to say he thanked me for giving him a life, and he might consider contacting me when his parents had passed on, but he hasn't done so.
Right.
And I feel that the social worker did a bit of damage. I mean, she was telling him my story, and she had told me my daughter's story. I think that was wrong.
Yeah, that should have been left up to both of, to each one of you, to tell each other your own stories.
That's my feeling about it.
Yeah.
I tried to contact her since, but she's left.
Right.
Naturally, a long time ago.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I'm very sorry that was messed up for you. That really destroyed your chance of meeting there, because I'm sure there was a lot of... there is prejudgment, isn't there? Sure, this whole society is full of judgment. And so...
Yeah, my third son died. He was found dead last year. I believe it's an overdose. He was same as I've a daughter. My youngest daughter is an addict, and they knew each other on the streets. And when he came to visit me, they recognised each other, and he never came back. And I found out afterwards his adopted brother got drunk, and he come around, and this is every birth mother's problem and fear. He knocked at all the neighbours' doors and asked for me, and told everybody my son had died. But luckily in this case, everybody knew about my son, so they weren't getting any news, but it was just something to give them something to gossip about. That part is the fear of most, I'm sure, mothers, that somebody will come knock on the door and tell the neighbours. Didn't bother me, but it would have bothered other people. Apparently my youngest daughter and him were seeing each other, and they didn't know they were related. So
that's not the first time that's happened. There may be an instinctive recognition thing that goes on, and people misinterpret that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it.
That's it. We're just trying to cope. We're just trying to cope with all of that. He was
sit back
some
and take a
man.
breath.
He was some man. He did some damage.
And the social workers did some damage.
He was a bastard. I admire him in a way because he taught me an awful lot of how to do things through carpentry, electric work, and painting and decorating and working with what I was able to do and do the job I was able to do. That part I admired, but no, it stops there. I've had it. He died there in 1988, and he was cremated. I didn't have the money to have him buried, or last Navan asked me would I want his ashes disposed of in anywhere, and I said I don't care where you put it, and he said we dispose of it privately. I have no idea where it is, and I don't want to know. I have no interest, and I couldn't cry. I just wasn't able to.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. But now I think mother would. I occasionally, now and again, I cry about her, but that's because I didn't know her for long enough.
Mm-hmm.
She said she really didn't want a daughter. She wanted sons. She was a farmer's daughter, so sons were important to her.
Well, yeah. And have you had a chance to talk about this in counselling? Have you had a chance to?
I've talked to a couple of people in counselling, but I didn't get very far because as soon as I started talking about certain parts of the conversation, they said, "Oh yeah, that reminds me of such a body that used to come and see me, and I handled it this way, and I suggested that," and it went off on an angle that I didn't. It wasn't about me; it was about somebody else. So I just give it up. I didn't bother going. I did have a friend that was a counsellor, but she got pregnant herself and left where she was working, and I haven't seen her since. So. Tell me up.
Yeah,
so
obviously then, and this goes without saying because I know that you and I have talked extensively about stuff in the past. Our group has been a good support to you, or
oh my God Almighty, Kathy, you don't know that, but I can get on there and rant away or cry, wherever. And there's somebody to listen to me at home. My family don't understand the situation. They can't understand. Their attitude is, well, hey, your son is gone. Like, you didn't have him. Like, why are you worried about him? He's not around. So you haven't enough to be worried about him. What are you thinking about him for, or her for?
Yeah.
And that's that. They don't understand it because everybody around them is having kids, and there's nobody batting an eyelid.
Yeah.
Like today's attitude is that.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
I saw something today on a message on First Mother's Day. Somebody asked, "How come a man can have a vasectomy and a woman can't be sterilised?"
Yeah, I've seen that.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
A damn good question.
Yeah, but just in terms of dealing with what happened there, as you say, he had his admirable traits, and they're probably very masculine traits, and he was totally absorbed in work. There wasn't a woman's influence around to moderate that, but you were let down.
Society let you down.
Repeatedly.
For a bang.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't have got pregnant 3 times. Why would I do such a stupid thing? But as I said, I was not exactly an adult, even at that age. Well, I still don't think I'm an adult.
Well, you know
what I mean by that.
Well, yeah, but when somebody like that is around you, when somebody who's that controlling is around you, you can't really have a proper grasp of the word no, or your entitlement to say no, or your entitlement to feel, hey, I deserve something in life, because that's all been taken off you by the controller. So you're open season, you're fair game, unfortunately. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Had you been supported throughout your pregnancies, from your first pregnancy, because all of us deserve the support. All of us, if we were supported, could have done quite well raising our own children.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't beat myself up about having had 3 children. You'd got capabilities, and obviously you could have successfully raised those children.
Yeah, I've raised 4 successful.
it's very sad that your youngest son that was taken from you died the way he died without you knowing, without anybody.
That part hurts.
Yeah, without anybody telling you, not even down to his adoptive brother telling you. But,
he rings and tells me he's going to contact me and we should meet, but he just doesn't turn up.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he has his difficulties too. But what I'm saying is that, other people, social workers, or, other people, I don't know whether his adoptive parents are still alive, but there should be some way of us being informed when something happens to the children that was taken from us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I read in the paper that one after another his parent had died, and I waited for some months afterwards, and I wrote to him, and I got several calls on the phone with nobody on the other end, and eventually he plucked up the courage to talk to me and introduce himself. And his brother, his adopted brother, thought it was his mother coming looking for him.
Right.
And he was upset, so it was a bit of a letdown for him. But having said that, there should have been somebody in place. That convent should have left. Whoever placed these children should have some sort of way of, if the child dies and anything happens, the family should be discreetly let know.
Yeah.
Some way or another.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
But yes. In an ideal world it would be, but
even in a half-functioning world, it would be great to see, all of that been handled better. I can't help but feel, from what you've said there, that a few times when somebody with a bit of cop on could have realised and helped you, and you were in
at one stage my father gave me such a hiding and threw me out of the house early in the morning, and my neighbour took me in and seen there how badly I was beaten up. She brought me to St. Vincent's Hospital when it was in Stephen's Green. So St. Vincent's used to be in Stephen's Green.
Yeah.
And the doctor asked me there what had happened to me, and I told him, and he said, you must bruise easily, and sent me home.
What year was that?
Sorry?
What year was that?
Oh, God. That was before I had any children.
Right.
That was way back in the 60s.
So you were being physically abused at home?
Yeah.
And being presented at a hospital and nobody...
I was hit. Yeah. I was put into the nurse's home for a couple of hours and attached to that hospital, and then until the bruises cooled down, and I was sent home then, back to where I had come from.
Wow.
And I think that the fact that he strapped me up with this cardboard contraption that did cause the damage in which I needed his sections in the first place.
Yeah.
It had to have damaged something.
What do you need now to help move on? You said the group's been very helpful to you, but,
More, I'd like to meet them more than... It's not possible to because it's so widespread, but I'd love to be in touch with them, to have chats with them when I want to, rather like face to face, holding hands.
Yeah.
Support that way.
Yeah, well, you need that. You need that. In all honesty, you need that, because it's almost a lifelong loneliness of having to carry this with you,
Yeah, yes, it is.
Have you met with the commission?
I just the one in Bagot Street. I just went to that, and I got the list of Samaritans and all that to contact for counsel and sort of thing. That's all. Haven't heard anything from Idea to Judge Yvonne Murphy.
So you haven't heard anything else from that. That what was that in relation to giving your testimony in public?
Yeah, the sworn testimony.
Yeah. So you met with the confidential committee?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
How did you find that? We can't go into the details of your actual testimony to them, just in general terms, how you felt the experience.
It didn't affect me because I had my granddaughter with me. She kept holding my hand, and it was the fact that some of the family understood the situation was there for me. It was handy. It was helpful. It was comforting.
To have your granddaughter there.
Yeah, to have her, my youngest the youngest that lives with me.
Yeah.
But,
And did you find the meeting with the confidential committee helpful?
It did, because I got it out of my chest and explained my side of it, but whether it meant anything to them, I don't know. They were busy taking notes and recording them, so.
What would you like to see coming out of the Commission of Inquiry?
Oh, I'd like to see them acknowledging the fact that they were dealing with everything wrong in the first place. Get rid of the church out of everything and admit to it.
But also I think that, proper psychological assistance, we need individual, professional psychotherapists working with us.
Yes, definitely, yes.
Yeah. The group is certainly a help in that area, because at least you're speaking with people there privately about, and it can be real. Yeah, exactly. I'd like to thank you, Joan, for speaking about all of that so briefly as well. Maybe we could speak again about more aspects of that, because there's an awful lot went on there. Yeah, and we did have to condense it into a short period of time. It's been an eye-opener. And thank you very much, Joan.
Thanks you very much for listening to me.
Yeah.
And thanks, Kathy, very much.
Thank you, Fintan, and thank you, Joan.
So, what's up next, Kathy?
Well, next week we'll be hearing from 2 more living witnesses, one on the 2nd and the other on the 4th.
Okay, that's Tuesday and Thursday of next week, and I hope that you can take the time to join us then. See you then.
We walk the road now, the road of darkness. We've walked that road till the very end. We could not see before the sunset. We could not see before the dawn. The feel of strength now in your father's arms, with no fear or no alarm. I've come here to unlock your dreams, dispel the darkness, draw the light so near. Don't close heaven's way, don't close it at all. Don't close heaven's way.